The deep black of space had never felt so quiet. Captain Daniel Harrow sat alone on the bridge of the Artemis Reach, staring out at the glittering river of distant stars. His ship was a small survey vessel, meant for scanning asteroid fields and charting trade routes, not for excitement. The hum of engines and the soft beeping of instruments had become his lullaby during long months away from Earth. He thought tonight would be no different, until the distress signal arrived. It was faint, nearly drowned in static but unmistakable. A life pod was drifting in the dark, its beacon pulsing weakly. Daniel ordered the crew to reel it in. They had rescued stranded miners before, but this pod was nothing like any human design. Sleek, silver, almost crystalline, it looked grown rather than built. When they pried it open, the crew froze. Inside lay a woman, tall, silver-skinned, with hair that shimmered like liquid frost. Her breathing was shallow, her body trembling violently. She looked both alien and regal, as though she had stepped out of some otherworldly court. "Captain," whispered Chief Engineer Ramos, "she's freezing." They rushed her to the medical bay, but the ship's systems struggled. Human heaters and thermal blankets were not enough. Her body temperature kept dropping, her skin paling to near translucent. Dr. Yara shook her head helplessly. "She's not built like us. Her body doesn't make its own warmth. She needs something else." That night, Daniel retired to his quarters exhausted. He had done everything he could. If she survived the night, it would be a miracle. But in the middle of his sleep, he awoke to a strange sound. A whisper. He blinked in the dim light and saw her, the alien woman, standing beside his bed. Her eyes glowed faintly like frozen sapphires. Her voice was soft but insistent. "I need your warmth." Before Daniel could react, she slid under the blanket beside him. Her skin was icy to the touch, but she pressed close, trembling less with each passing second. "Wait, what are you doing?" Daniel stammered, trying to sit up. Her gaze was steady. "Without your heat, I will die." Daniel froze. This was no ordinary guest. Whoever she was, her survival depended on something as simple and awkward as human body warmth. Against his instincts, he lay back down. Slowly, the trembling stopped and her breathing steadied. By morning, she was alive. The crew was stunned when Daniel brought her to the mess hall the next day. Wrapped in a spare uniform, she moved with grace and authority, as if the steel walls of the Artemis Reach were beneath her dignity. "I am Princess Kalira of the Thrin Dominion," she announced, her voice carrying the weight of a throne room. "You have my gratitude, Captain Harrow. Without you, I would have perished in the void." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Everyone in the galaxy had heard whispers of the Thrin Dominion, a vast empire of cold worlds ruled by an iron dynasty. Few humans had ever met one of their kind. Ramos muttered, "A princess? On our ship? This can't be good." Kalira, however, seemed completely unbothered by their stares. She carried herself with calm pride, but whenever her skin began to pale, she drifted closer to Daniel. And whenever the ship's lights dimmed for night cycle, she slipped silently into his quarters, whispering the same words each time. "I need your warmth." For Daniel, it was equal parts surreal and exhausting. Sharing his bed with an alien princess was not part of his captain's training. The crew teased him quietly, though none dared speak openly in front of her. Still, the arrangement kept her alive. As days passed, Daniel tried to learn more. "Why were you adrift in that pod?" he asked one evening as she sat across from him, sipping cautiously at a cup of hot tea she clearly disliked. Kalira's expression remained carefully composed. "I was escaping. From what?" Her eyes darkened. "From a future I did not choose." That was all she would say. Daniel suspected there was much more to the story, but pressing her further only earned silence. Then the danger revealed itself. The Artemis Reach detected ships on long-range scanners, sleek, crescent-shaped war vessels moving with chilling precision. Dominion craft. The crew went tense. A survey vessel stood no chance against a fleet like that. "They're searching," Yara whispered. "For her." Kalira confirmed it with a slow nod. "They hunt me. My people cannot allow me to be free. If they catch me, they will take me back. And all of you will be executed for sheltering me." Daniel clenched his fists. He had rescued people before, but never someone who could drag his entire crew into a galactic conflict. He thought of ordering her off the ship, but when he glanced at her pale skin and trembling hands, the thought died in his throat. She needed warmth to live. His warmth. Human warmth. and for reasons he couldn't yet understand, she had chosen him. The crew debated furiously in the war room. Ramos argued they should abandon her before the Dominion caught up. Yara insisted that humanity could not survive by betraying those in need. Daniel listened to it all, then stood. "We don't throw people out into the dark, not on my ship." The crew fell silent. It was a dangerous decision, but it was the human one. Kalira's gaze softened. For the first time, her regal mask cracked. "You're kind. You guard warmth as though it is sacred. No wonder the cold fears you." That night, when she slid once more into his sheets, Daniel didn't argue. The ship shuddered under the distant echo of approaching engines. The Dominion fleet was closing in, and the Artemis Reach had nowhere to hide. Kalira whispered the same words as always. "I need your warmth." But this time, her voice carried something different. Not just desperation, but trust. Daniel stared up at the ceiling, the weight of command pressing down harder than ever. Out there, the cold empire was coming for them. But in here, a spark of warmth might be the only thing keeping them both alive. The alarms rang through the corridors of the Artemis Reach. Red lights flashed as the crew rushed to their stations. On the main screen, the Dominion fleet appeared like a wall of cold steel, their crescent-shaped ships gliding silently across the void. Captain Daniel Harrow stood at the center of the bridge, his jaw tight. He knew their survey vessel had no chance in a direct fight. The Dominion ships were larger, faster, and armed with weapons that could freeze entire colonies into silence. Beside him stood Princess Kalira. Her face was calm, but her eyes carried the weight of fear she refused to show. She leaned closer to Daniel and spoke quietly, so only he could hear. "They will not stop. They will burn your ship to ashes if they believe I am here." Daniel did not answer right away. His crew looked to him for orders, their faces pale under the red glow. He could not let them see doubt. "Ramos," he said firmly, "get me every scrap of power we can spare. Engines, shields, even the coffee maker if you have to." Ramos gave a grim nod and ran to the engine room. Daniel turned to Yara. "Find me a weakness. Something, anything that their ships can't handle." The doctor raised a brow. "Against Dominion cruisers? That's like throwing snowballs at a glacier." "Then let's throw fire instead," Daniel replied. Hours passed as the Artemis Reach dodged through asteroid fields, trying to stay out of reach. Each time the Dominion ships grew close, Daniel pushed his vessel to the edge, using sharp turns and daring maneuvers that no Dominion captain would risk. Human ships were clumsy by comparison, but Daniel used that chaos as a weapon. Still, it was only a matter of time. Late that night, when the lights dimmed to night cycle, Kalira came again to his quarters. She did not ask permission. She slipped under the blanket and whispered the same words as always. "I need your warmth." Daniel sighed. "You don't make this easy, Princess." Her skin was cold, her body trembling, but her voice carried something softer than before. "You risk your life for me. Your people risk their lives. Why? You owe me nothing." Daniel stared at the ceiling for a long moment. "Because we don't leave people to freeze in the dark. Not if we can help it. That's not how humans survive." Kalira studied his face in the dim light. For the first time since they met, her expression cracked into the faintest smile. The next day, Yara brought a discovery. "Captain, their ships feed on cold. They channel extreme energy into freezing fields, but their own systems can't handle uncontrolled heat. They avoid unstable stars, volcanic worlds, plasma storms. They can't survive in fire." Daniel's eyes lit up. "Then we'll give them fire." The crew worked quickly. They rerouted the ship's heating systems, overloading the reactors to produce bursts of extreme heat. Ramos built crude projectors from mining equipment, turning them into weapons of raw plasma. It was reckless, dangerous, and likely to tear the ship apart, but it was the only chance they had. When the Dominion fleet cornered them near a red dwarf star, the trap was set. "Bring us in close," Daniel ordered, sweat running down his neck as alarms screamed from the strain on the engines. The Dominion commander hailed them, her voice cold and sharp over the comms. "Return the princess, or you will burn with your fragile craft." Daniel glanced at Kalira, who stood tall behind him. Her voice was clear when she answered. "I will never return to your chains." The Dominion fleet advanced. Energy fields crackled with freezing power. The Artemis Reach shook under the pressure. "Now!" Daniel shouted. The ship's modified projectors unleashed bursts of superheated plasma. flooding the space between them with fire. The Dominion ships reeled, their shields flickering, their formations breaking apart. They were not built for heat, not built for unpredictability. The crew cheered, but the fight was not over. One Dominion cruiser broke through the fire, aiming directly for the Artemis Reach. "Boarding parties incoming," Ramos shouted. The Dominion soldiers stormed the ship, tall and armored, their weapons crackling with freezing energy. But they had never fought humans up close. Daniel led his crew in defense. In the tight corridors, human unpredictability and raw grit became their strength. Ramos used a welding torch as a weapon. Yara threw medical canisters that burst into steam clouds, blinding the enemy. Even Kalira fought, wielding a captured Dominion blade with icy precision. The battle was fierce, but the humans refused to yield. Finally, Daniel faced the Dominion commander herself on the lower deck. She towered over him, her blade humming with cold energy. "You are only human," she sneered. "Why fight for a cause that is not yours?" Daniel met her gaze, his chest heaving. "Because warmth isn't just survival. It's who we are, and it's something you'll never take from us." With a desperate strike, he drove her back into the overloaded plasma conduits. Heat erupted, consuming her in fire. The remaining Dominion soldiers fled in shock, retreating to their ships. The battle was won. The Artemis Reach drifted damaged but alive, the Dominion fleet scattering into retreat. The crew slumped in exhaustion, their cheers weak but filled with pride. Kalira stood on the bridge, her silver skin glowing faintly in the afterglow of victory. She looked at Daniel, her voice quiet but certain. "My throne was built on cold chains, but here, with you and your people, I have felt something my empire never gave me." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" She stepped closer, her eyes soft. "Warmth. The kind that does not fade when the fire burns out." That night, when she came once more to Daniel's quarters, there was no desperation in her whisper. She slid into the sheets with calm certainty, her voice gentle but strong. "I need your warmth, not just to live, but to stay." Daniel closed his eyes, the hum of the ship surrounding them. For the first time in weeks, he let himself relax. The Dominion might return one day. The galaxy was still dangerous, but in that moment he understood something simple and unshakable. No matter how cold the void became, humanity's warmth would always shine through.